everybody. So we're so excited today. We are here for our next episode of Talking Disney. Once a month, Stanford and I get together and we talk about a Disney canon film, and we leave it up to the number picker to decide what we're going to talk about.
The mighty number picker.
Yes. And and this month they chose the 16th Disney animated classic, Sleeping Beauty. This is so exciting, and it fit in just perfect with a lot of different things going on. In fact, even today they announced the moving up. We don't have to wait an additional 6 months for our Maleficent sequel. So that is not exciting. I am
exactly. You and I both are just like, oh, whatever. But, kind of ironic that
they came today.
Announced that today.
We're filming, but thanks so much, Jennifer, for coming on the podcast to talk about this.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the invite. It's so great to talk with you about. I'm really excited to talk with you about Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. Why don't you tell everybody what the experience that you had?
Well, yeah. So again, this was just one of those fluky things. This here, the mighty number generator picked Sleeping Beauty, and then I belong to D23, which is Disney's official fan club that they run from the Walt Disney Company, and about once a quarter, it seems like, or maybe twice a year, once a quarter, the D23 Club provides an opportunity to see a classic Disney film on the big screen in the studio theater on the Disney Studios lot in Burbank, California. So it's usually some kind of a nominal charge. And you have to, of course, for those of us who don't live in California, you have to get to California to be able to go. They typically do it on a Saturday afternoon, so it's like a Saturday matinee. But this most recent was Sleeping Beauty, and I was able to get a ticket, and I just was so thrilled I got to see this movie on the big screen, because I've seen it on the big screen before, but typically when they show these movies on the Disney Studio lot, it's a digital print of the film. Super high quality projection, wonderful sound, wonderful seats. It's just a really great experience. I would just encourage anybody to join D23, and not just to go have an experience, seeing a movie on the Disney Studios lot. So plus you get to go on the lot, right? And so the studio theater is literally just right immediately adjacent to the original animation building that Walt Disney, had built in the late 30s, early 1940s. And so there you are, we were watching this film that was just created 100 feet away.
Yeah.
And that part was thrilling. Not to mention just seeing this movie on the big screen, because that's the winning part really for me of Sleeping Beauty, is the incredible artwork, the incredible animation, the incredible backgrounds, the incredible art direction and production design of this film are just beyond reproach. They're just stunning. So anyway, it was a cool experience that I just wish I could have beamed everybody down there.
I know,
and gone, because it was so cool.
I would love to see this on the big screen, just for the music alone.
Having the music on the big stereo, in the theater, and so great.
We'll talk about it, but I think it has some of the best voice acting in the history of movies, and just to hear that would have been incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm very jealous. This is not one I have seen on the big screen. I've seen most of the princess movies at one point or another on the big screen. I've seen a lot. I've seen Fantasia as well. A lot of the classics, but I have not seen Sleeping Beauty, and I would love to.
Oh yeah. I hope you can get to see. I hope you can see it on the big screen someday.
Yeah.
Rachel, because I think you just love it.
So, yes, so this film was released in 1959, and I feel kind of bad for Walt Disney sometimes, because I think that almost every time that he really tried to push the studio, it's interesting because we were just talking in another podcast about Disney's attempts this last year to to take risks and how they didn't work. And I feel like a lot of times with Walt, I feel kind of bad because his attempts to really push things to be artistic as opposed to be commercially
Yeah.
super attractive, I guess, all didn't do very well.
Right. I know.
And so it's just kind of it's sad because I don't know, it's just a weird thing. Like, you're something like your Fantasias, your Bambis, your Alice in Wonderlands, Sleeping Beauty, these kind of more artistically ambitious films were not as successful as your Lady and the
Yeah.
Tramp, 101
Yeah.
Dalmatians, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, all films I love, but just more. I mean, I guess there's just something to it that your more artistic, ambitious, risky films are not going to please as many people because of that very nature
Yes.
of what they are.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case with Sleeping Beauty. Unfortunately, it was one of the biggest flops when you count in how long it took to make and
Yeah. It
how
was so
expensive it was.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the history of Disney, it's one of the biggest flops, which is such a bummer because after Sleeping Beauty, I don't know, I just feel like if it had been a big success, it would have pushed them and we wouldn't have had this. I mean, obviously we had the lull after Sleeping Beauty, partly because of the death of Walt Disney, but I know, I just feel like because he died in 1966, so fairly soon after, 7 years after. But I just feel like if it had been a huge success and people had loved it, we would have seen like probably 20, 30 years of different Disney than
Different
what we got.
type of films. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you compare Sleeping Beauty to the next film 2 years later in 1961, 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're very different films, and they were
Yeah.
also, but they were using a more cost-effective style of animation with 101 Dalmatians.
Right.
Although I adore the art in that film too. I think it has its.
It was definitely the
has its merits.
best usage of sketch style, the Xerox
Yeah.
style, for sure. Because I mean, you have it was brilliant because you have a bunch of characters with black spots, perfect for Xerox. But
I'm with you
yeah, I agree with you
on Sleeping Beauty because it's the art is so remarkable, and it's really more of a cerebral, and it's more of an arty film, as you say, more than just kind of popular entertainment.
Yeah, it's very true. So yeah, I loved Sleeping Beauty though as a little girl. I really just thought I thought it was funny. I thought it was romantic. I liked music, and I love Cinderella as well. But if you think about it, because there's sort of this idea that all Disney makes are princess movies, which is very much not the case.
It's not true. Yeah.
And I think that we kind of get that impression because of the Renaissance period where there was a lot of female centric, even if they weren't particularly Disney princess movies, they were female centric.
Yeah.
And I know, so then you had that period where you had Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin with Jasmine, Pocahontas, even Hercules kind of has a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's what people get that impression for. But for a long time of my childhood, Sleeping Beauty was the last princess movie that had come out, and was it Princess Sleeping Beauty, Aurora, and
and it was 30 years
Cinderella
until The Little Mermaid came out, in 1989 when we finally got another princess movie,
which is part of the reason why I loved it so much. But yeah, I don't know. I just really I showed you the picture of me going Halloween as Aurora as a kid, and that was really special. And Also,
That's the cutest. It's such a
yeah.
cute picture. Those are great costumes
Yeah, my
too.
mom's amazing. And my sister went as Merryweather, and it was really
That's so
cute.
fun. Yeah.
And I also think there was something about Maleficent that really uh was really kind of scary and brave a little bit, whereas as a little girl, I
Hmm.
remember just thinking she was so bad because she said at one point, she says like all the powers of hell or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, oh, she
Yeah.
is so bad.
She's swearing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it gets pretty scary. I mean, for a little kid,
Oh yeah.
God,
She's terrifying, I
yeah.
think.
Next
Yeah.
to the only thing I can remember being more sort of scared by is maybe the Wicked Witch,
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz, and then Return to Oz scarred me for life.
Well,
I hate that movie.
scarred us all, that thing. Yikes.
But yeah, it was just a very memorable movie, one that I really loved as a little girl. So I have a lot of nostalgia for it, a lot of love for it.
Yeah.
I wonder what's your sort of feeling about this movie going into this watch?
Well, the princess thing doesn't really
Right.
speak to me, but I think when I started just learning more about animated films and how they were put together and they were actual people, that were creating these and
Yeah.
learning about who some of these different artists were and some of the histories of some of these films. I just think Sleeping Beauty has some of the most remarkable art of any Disney film,
Yes.
Disney animated film. And so much of that, at least the stuff that I've learned, can be attributed. I mean, the whole team was incredibly talented, and they had a very talented leader in the color stylist of the film, who's Ivan Earl. And
Right.
so I've just really enjoyed over the years learning more about Ivan Earl. I've been able to go to some different art exhibits of his work that showed both stuff of Sleeping Beauty, but also he was a very prolific artist. I think his goal was like to do a painting a day. I'm not kidding. I mean, he just was so prolific. I still, my favorite stuff of his is still Sleeping Beauty.
Uh-huh.
And he does some other stuff for Disney and some other short films and things for Disney, and it's interesting to see because you can really see, clearly identify that it's his once you're familiar with his style. But I just adore his work,
And I think you can tell, this is sound weird, but I think you can tell that the animation is truly great in this movie because
yes,
there are many spots where I know I'm like, they recycled that one later on in Sword in the Stone. They recycled it in Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, yeah,
all over the
exactly.
place in this movie. You're like, they knew that this movie was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so they used it a lot, I think.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
But yeah, they really were trying to get a lyric quality to it. I mean, this is that era where you have Disney fairy tales starting with a book and opening up. And I love those pages in the opening sequence, just the way that they have those medieval,
aren't they the coolest
pages? Yeah.
And that book prop still exists. In fact, they showed, they had an add-on to that D23 event I attended.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of expensive for like another $300. So it was like pass on that one. But they had the book on display, so they were letting people look at the book. I mean, they couldn't touch it, but they could look at it. And then I think some of that art inside the book, I think that's all been archived, and I'm not sure if they were showing any of that. But and then they had a special lunch, and I think they also had like a Sleeping Beauty character there. Stuff. It was like lunch for the princess.
Yeah.
So,
character meal.
I mean, I'm sure it was really cool. But just to see pictures of that book, because I love that. How the jeweled book and how wonderfully it's put together.
Yeah. And so every frame of the movie was supposed to look like a picture of a book, and it had layers. And there was something I heard that it took as much as just for one background, it would take a month
Yeah.
for an animator to work on one background of one frame, which is insane. And
Yeah.
you look at the history of this movie, and it's really pretty amazing. They actually started production. Of course, they had pre-production that went on for many years, but then the actual start of the production of the movie was in 1951. They had, from what I've read, they had most of the voice cast recorded by 1952.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, if you think about it, that Disneyland started in 1955, and you had Sleeping Beauty's castle in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And that ended up being 4 years before
the movie
the
even
movie
opened.
even released, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy, isn't it? And pretty interesting. Almost, yeah, because it was like a great advertisement, right, for the film. That the centerpiece of Walt's Park was this movie that was about to open. An interesting thing of note too. I don't know if you've ever gone through that Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough that
Yeah.
you can do. It's changed over time, but the current iteration of it, they brought it back. Ivan Earl, the artist and color stylist of the film, came in and did those little window. I mean,
Did he?
Those were his, yeah.
Oh.
Which is really cool. They're really neat.
Yeah, it is really cool. I kind of wonder if we're ever gonna get a if it's big. I don't know if it's big enough inside. I don't really know what it's like. Nobody knows what it's like inside. But in Disney World, they have the whole Cinderella's castle character meal thing.
All right. I mean, the castle is just absolutely gigantic,
right.
compared to what's in California. Yeah.
Right. So, but anyway, yeah, that is really a fun little thing there that they have at Disneyland, and you'll see Aurora quite a bit out at the park, which
that's true. Yeah, they've got that Aurora walk around character, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because one of the things that's so great about Walt Disney is he encouraged his artists to get formal training. They basically set up for a while he had the artists going to a special school. I forget the name of the school.
Yeah, it was like Chonard, or I'm trying to remember the name of the
And then he finally, I think, just set up his own school there at the studios.
Yeah.
And so they were taking classes and they were improving there. He really took it as art and as something beautiful. And I think that that's something that we just have lost, because people make beautiful things with the CGI, but it's way more technical, way less, a man in his paintbrush kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
the same.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the same. And so I just love to look at this movie, especially the whole sequence when she's in the forest.
Yes.
It's just incredible.
That forest scene is absolutely incredible. I think those gigantic trees that were painted, even just the tree trunks, are remarkable. And again, those are attributed to Ivan Earl. He was trying to go for the stuff that I've read and heard about this, that he was trying to make it look like a combination of a medieval tapestry, but also almost like a mid-century painting too. So it's this really interesting combo, but it's gorgeous. Like, I just want to go live there in that forest.
Yeah.
That's that scene, that sequence, that Once Upon a Dream sequence is amazing.
I agree. It's definitely one of the most beautiful pieces of animation ever made. No doubt about it. And, they had a lot of division with the movie between the various directors. Milt Kahl had a lot of problems with Walt. He felt like Walt's attention was elsewhere, which is probably true, because
Disneyland.
Disneyland.
Well, there was so much going on. There was TV,
right?
Mickey Mouse Club and all that stuff, and then they were doing live action films.
Yeah.
And just, you just can't imagine. I mean, the amount of stuff they were working on at that time at the studio.
And there was kind of this debate between the different Wilfred Jackson, who was who recorded the dialogue. He was the beginning kind of director, and you had Ted Sears and Milt Kahl, Wolfgang Reitherman, all these different voices kind of all in kind of debating about the tone and the feel and how close they wanted to stay to the fairy tale versus the ballet and what they wanted to do. And, it just kept stretching and stretching and stretching out for almost a decade. It took them to make this movie. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And I had heard too that Ivan Earl was a difficult person to work with.
Uh-huh.
And Walt loved his work and really, had entrusted him to, get it done. But I think that it was really hard to get everybody on board with that unique style.
Because originally it was planned to be released in 1955, which totally makes sense when you think that, Disneyland was scheduled for 1955.
Yeah.
And can you even imagine if a movie had 4-year delay today from its initial release?
You can't even, it's just like, no, it would never happen.
I mean, that thing, just look at what happened with Solo or something like that, where that's,
oh yeah,
it's just so funny, crazy. The only thing I can even think that had I think Good Dinosaur had maybe was it a year or 2 years?
Yeah, like they gave it an extra year or 18 months.
Yeah.
Or something. And
4 years.
Oh, wow.
And I guess
like Meet the Robinsons had like a 7-month extension or something on its release date. Does that sound right?
I think that's right. Yeah, that's something like that. And I think maybe Toy Story 2 had maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. But anyway, 4 years is unheard of. That would never happen. It would never happen. And so it's really pretty interesting. And yeah, they threw out different parts, and they, like it says here, that Ted Sears and this Wilfred Jackson, that they underwent a rewrite of the story in 1955, which received a lukewarm response from Disney. And so during the story rewriting process, the story writers felt the original fairy tale's second act felt bizarre, with the wake up kiss serving as a climactic moment. They decided to concentrate on the first half, finding strength in the romance. However, they felt the romance was developed between the strange prince and the princess. So there was all this just back and forth. And there was a whole sequence where the king was organized a treasure hunt, I guess, at a certain point, and they're out looking for gold or whatever. And then they dropped that. And there was, they redid the Once Upon a Dream scene several times. They originally had, I guess, Prince Philip and Aurora meeting earlier, and then they changed it to this random by chance encounter. Then they added Briar Rose, which was from the Grimm's version, and so there was this pull between the ballet and the Grimm's version. And it's really interesting that and they cut a lot, because it's not that long of a movie for
no.
It's only 75 minutes.
Yeah.
So it definitely so I don't know, that's all pretty interesting to me.
Me too.
And they had a second release date. It was going to be 1957 and then 1958. And like I said, Milt Kahl blamed Walt for the numerous delays. He said that he wouldn't have story meetings. He wouldn't get the damn thing moving. And so, yeah, and then a last minute, Eric Larson was removed from the project. in like 1958, which is so crazy. And I mean, we thought that Solo was messy. It's nothing on this.
Yeah, exactly. It just puts a lot of stuff into perspective, doesn't it? About what we read today, how films are made and whatnot, and
yeah,
this has been ongoing. These battles, these creative battles.
Yeah, and then a guy named Clyde Geronimi was put in instead of Larson, and then Wolfgang Reitherman got in on it, and they were going to have Philip die in the dragon sequence, and then obviously that ended up getting changed. But can you imagine, as late as 1958, they were going to have Philip die? What?
Holy cow. Yeah. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's amazing that the movie is as good as it is with all this madness.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, sure. I agree. With all the turmoil and whatnot. I don't think that the story is necessarily perfect, but I got to tell you, I think I had mentioned this to you earlier, but seeing this movie again on the big screen, whatever issues I might have had with the story, I just completely forgot because I was so just entranced, basically, by this gorgeous art and music.
Yeah, and you're right about Ivan Earl, that he wanted it to feel like you said a tapestry and also a page from a book. He says where his trees might have curved, I straightened them out. I took this painter Henge. She says I took them as inspiration, the Italian Renaissance, but then just turned it into my style. He says,
yeah,
and he had and I guess him and Geronimi had very creative differences. Not get along at all.
Yeah.
And Geronimi said that Ivan Earl, that he lacked the mood in a lot of things. All that beautiful detail in the trees, the bark, and all of that, that's all well and good, but who the hell's going to look at that? The backgrounds became more important than the animation. He'd made them more like Christmas cards. So that's that is to give you, I think, a flavor of what this was all like. It's very interesting to me to read about.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. One interesting thing I think to note too, Rachel, on it is that it was the second film from Disney Animation that was done in a widescreen format.
Yeah.
And the first one was Lady and the Tramp, which was from 1955. That was in Cinerama, I believe.
Right.
And then this was done, I'm not sure they were calling it Cinerama. It was like 70 millimeter though, so widescreen. So, which I think, of course, added to the time because the backgrounds had to be all that much bigger,
Yeah.
Because of the that ratio of the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been amazing to see it on because they had done, I think Lady and the Tramp was also
Lady and the Tramp.
Mm-hmm. And that I would have loved to see both those movies on that widescreen.
All right. Yeah.
Very cool. So let's dive in and talk about. They also used a lot of live action. They basically shot the whole movie as a live action film, and then used it as their guide when making the animation. And then what's cool about that is that Eleanor Audley did both. She did the voice and the live action acting, which I think is
just so cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And there are pictures of her with the Maleficent horns and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish I didn't find anything about why they decided to design Maleficent the way that she did with those horns. I'm guessing it was sort of inspired by kind of a devil kind of look.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. I don't know. It's, you know, Mark Davis, the great Disney animator and also Imagineer. He designed both Briar Rose and Maleficent, and he was I guess the lead animator on that. And I thought I had read some stuff about what I don't know about the horns, but I think they were trying to make Maleficent very beautiful, but then that, because of her very pointed features, that just adds to the scariness of her too.
Well, and Maleficent actually means devil, right?
Yeah, well, or bad or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It says on Google, it says causing harm or destruction, especially by supernatural means. So
okay.
Devilish kind of a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all sort of our background, but it's also interesting, I think. But let's dive into the story a little bit. So we start out with the christening scene, and I'm curious, as a member of the Tabernacle Choir, what do you think of all of the choral "Hail to the Queen"? All the choral singing in this. I don't know who it was, but how do you feel like that holds up?
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I think it they're not using a giant sized choir, but clearly good singers. But it also sounds very distinctive from the type of singing you hear in films in the 40s and the 50s. And for me, I like it. What's your take on it?
I like it. It does feel a little dated to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think so too. It feels like it's definitely a period of its, or a product of its time period.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that's bad. But yeah, it's not like, for me, the music, the singing in Snow White feels dated, and I don't really like it. I mean, I like the songs. That high-pitched singing isn't my favorite.
Yeah.
But this, it does feel a little dated, but I like it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Exactly.
But yeah, it really kind of gets you into the feel of this movie, and you've got this whole christening scene, and I love the animation on the gifts. So you have Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, who I love. They're amazing.
It's so cool.
And we have Flora giving the gift of beauty, and that whole sequence with the swirling, and that kind of, I think, is your sort of bringing in the ballet feel to it, which I appreciate. And I really like that. And then you have Fauna giving the gift of song. And then you see that swirling. And one thing that really irritated me about Maleficent, the movie, is that they change it so that Merryweather doesn't have to temper Maleficent's curse. Maleficent's curse is not to death in Maleficent. It's just to sleep. Whereas in this one, Merryweather has to temper Maleficent's curse with her gift.
Yeah.
And I forget what they do. They have her give knowledge or something lame. And so that really irritated me. But I just love the animation in also when Merryweather tempers the gift and make it for sleep, tempers the curse. That swirling animation thing is really great too. I love all three of those. Really.
Oh, I do too. Those are they're so interesting. In the credits of the film, Iwerks is listed, and he was such a amazing special effects designer and artist, and I just have wondered how they even put those on film.
Yeah,
they look like it's 3D.
Right.
The way that those things are swirling and all the different images that are floating around. It's just a knockout. I mean, I just wondered if that sequence alone took a year. Speaking of the time it took to make this film, amazing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And yeah, so we get Maleficent. She's very upset because she hasn't been invited to the christening, which I absolutely love. I just think that's I like real villains. I know we want to hear the tragic backstory of all our villains these days,
Ugh,
but
I
I
don't. I
like
don't.
somebody who's just evil
Just
in a
evil.
fairy tale, for goodness sakes.
She's just evil, and
Yeah.
that's the main problem I had with this whole Angelina Jolie
Yeah.
stuff, because they're like, learn the real story. I'm like, there is
Oh.
no real story. She's just evil.
Yeah.
You know?
She's not some rape victim, which is what
Yeah.
they turn Maleficent, who's like, even though she's evil, she's powerful and strong, into this wimpy, whiny,
Ugh.
terrible character that makes nonsensical choices.
So horrible.
Like, it makes no sense that you would curse a baby and then the next day follow her.
I know. And watch over her.
And then the fairies are the worst in that movie.
Are the bumbling idiots that that almost kill her every day.
Yeah, she almost walks off a cliff. I was so mad. But anyway, yeah, it's the worst. But I love her in this. And Eleanor Audley has to have one of the best vocal performances in the history of animation.
Amen.
Up there with Robin Williams, up there, with the greats.
Yeah.
She's so good.
She's so good. And the character design, I know we've already kind of talked a little bit about this, but just, those black robes and the horn and the colors and everything.
Yeah.
She's so, and also how, don't you love how she is able to disappear away into that funky design or whatever, she vaporizes away.
Yep.
So amazing.
I love every character design in this movie. I even like the bird. I like everybody. They're all amazing.
All of Sleeping Beauty's forest friends. I mean, I do too. They're all fantastic.
Really good. And so she gets the curse, and there are definitely a couple little plot holes, I guess, in this movie, probably from the messiness. But it doesn't really make sense that they have to take her into the forest when she's a baby, if it's not going to happen until she's 16. There's no reason why you wouldn't just have her come and hide at 14.
Hide, 15. Those last few years of her life. Right. Before turning 16. Yeah. But whatever.
15 and a half, like, put her in hiding. Like, what's going on? If anything, keeping her completely ignorant of it would probably be the most dangerous thing you could do.
Yeah.
Because she could just stumble upon all kinds of things and not realize. So anyway, it doesn't really, but who cares? So they come up with this plan that they're going to raise Aurora and they're not going to use any magic, which also doesn't really make sense, because then they get to her 16th birthday and
they completely blow it.
And they have to make a cake and make a dress and clean the house. And even though they have been living supposedly without magic for 16 years, raising a child, they seem to be completely incapable of any of these three things.
Yeah, these tasks are so beyond them. It's like, it's the first time they've ever followed a recipe to make a cake.
Right.
And
the only thing I can figure out as an explanation is that Merriweather just did everything.
Yeah,
he's the only one that seems to be competent.
Yeah, who knows who's competent?
Or that she's just snuck in magic somehow or whatever. Right. I don't know.
Right.
But who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just
so fun.
Every movie has plot holes. It doesn't matter. But
that's a fun scene. They play it up for comedy, and it's funny.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's the same kind of thing of like, why are these miners in Snow White that are bringing down things that are mining like rubies and that are living in a tiny little cottage in the forest? What's going on here?
Right.
So every movie has plot holes. It doesn't matter. And so so they've named her Briar Rose, as you say. and she goes into the forest, and she's collecting berries. I think they have her go collect berries.
They want her out of the house so they can get her birthday
Yeah.
surprises ready.
And she starts singing with her animal friends, which are so delightful and so lovely.
Again, in that forest setting that is beyond gorgeous.
Yeah,
It's the most amazing design.
Amazing. It's so beautiful. And she starts, dancing and singing Once Upon a Dream, which is the only song in this movie.
Yeah.
As far as vocal. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's the choral singing.
And there's that Scrumps.
That's true. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But anyway, it's the keynote song, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean,
anyway,
it's the recurring theme.
Yes. And then Philip stumbles upon her, thinks that she is a commoner. And of course, they were betrothed to each other at the beginning of the movie. Forgot to mention that at the christening. And so they start dancing. And I love Philip. I think Philip is amazing. And I don't understand why people say that he's bland and lame. I think he's great. Like, I think he is kind of spunky and like speaks, what is this, the 14th century or whatever, to his dad.
Yeah.
And he's got this beautiful baritone voice that I love.
And a fun relationship with his horse.
Yes.
They've got kind of this humorous relationship.
Yeah, and he fights in the dungeon against Maleficent, and then when he gets broken free, he's on that horse and he's like fighting against the thorns, and I don't know, like, what more do people want?
Yeah, I don't understand. If people are giving Philip a bad rap, I just think, well, whatever. I think he's a really solid character in this movie.
The princes before didn't even have names.
Right. They were just Prince Charming, and they're hardly in the movie.
Yeah, and the prince. That's it. And so I don't know. I don't understand that complaint. I don't get it, because he's awesome. I love Prince Philip. He's my favorite, with the exception of maybe, I mean, I don't really count Aladdin, because Aladdin that's his movie, so it's like a little bit different than the rest of the princes. But I think that Chang in Mulan is probably the best. I mean, Flynn Rider's so great, but Chang and Flynn and Philip, definitely the best of the princes, for sure, in my opinion. Anyway.
Hey, and that's legit. I respect that.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so we get introduced to them. They fall in love with this dance, and it's really great. And a lot of people give Aurora a lot of flack as well. She's such a boring princess, just waiting to be like a man or whatever. And I don't know if I agree. Like,
I disagree too.
It doesn't ever say anywhere that she's going to get married that day or something. I mean, I think it's believable that a sheltered, kind of shy woman would meet somebody and fall in love. I think that's reasonable for a fairy tale. I don't need I don't know. I mean, and it's kind of unfair, because she is asleep for most of the movie, so it's, first of all, not fair. But she's kind to animals. She's sweet, loving.
Yeah.
She has a little bit of spunk when they tell her she can't be with him, see him anymore. So I like Aurora, and I love her character design. I think she is beautiful.
Yeah, she's a beautiful character, and I like her. In fact, Disney hired an opera singer, a young opera singer, Mary Costa.
Amazing.
Her performance is amazing. I think she gives a very credible performance. I mean, sure, she maybe doesn't have the most. We don't know her that well, and whatever. I think she does great.
Yeah.
And I'm with you.
Yeah. So anyway, then Maleficent sends the bird out, which I think is named Diablo.
Yeah, I think he's Diablo. Yeah.
Sends
I
a
think
bird
at
out.
least that's what we know him as, right? I don't know if they
Right.
ever established that in the film, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so she sends her bird out to go, and she's at the Forbidden Mountain.
Yeah,
And
because her minions haven't been able. Her minions have been out looking for a baby for
right, for
years.
16 years.
Yeah,
Which was a bit of an oversight on her part there.
I know. And her minions are so great too. I mean, they're designed in such a fun way. You know, just kind of these really odd looking creatures. I think they're so cool.
Yeah, I agree. And anyway, so they're at the house and they decide to use magic, and there's this war between, they make the dress pink or blue. And Flora wants to make it pink, and Merriweather wants to make it blue, and so they're back and forth, and like the magic goes through the chimney, and the Diablo sees it, and he knows where they are. So that's how we know. And what about you? Are you team pink or team blue?
Oh, I'm team blue. I think, and I'm glad that for much of the movie she's in blue. I just think it's such a beautiful shade of blue that they created for. I mean, both dresses are they're fine, but yeah, I'm team blue for sure.
I think they went with pink as far as her official Disney princess color.
Yeah,
because at the time Cinderella was blue,
right?
And so they wanted to
differentiate some, yeah.
And now they have two blue because technically Elsa and Anna aren't princesses yet, but they kind of have two blue now at this point. So I don't know if they'll branch out, different colors here, but anyway, I think that's why they officially went Team Pink, but I don't know. But I did poll my Twitter listeners,
yes,
or whatever, and we ended up with Team Blue also winning in.
Oh wow! Okay,
poll. Yeah, 8 for Team Blue, 4 for Team Pink, and we had 2 voters that liked the mixed up, crazy version.
Kind of the disaster version.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes. And so anyway, so there's that kind of fun thing going on. And then she returns home and she tells them that she's met this man and that he's going to come and come back and see her again. And she's very excited. Well, then they burst the news that she is a princess and she has to return back to the castle that night. And of course, she is devastated because she won't be able to. I mean, probably a complicated moment. She's not. But anyway, so she's very sad, but they take her to the palace and they put her in this room and she's crying, and so there's all that. Then we have this scene between the 2 kings that that I don't understand. It's so weird. This period of Disney movies, they loved having the weird, random get drunk scene. And I don't really understand it. I mean, it's true.
It is true.
Why is there a random scene in Dumbo where they get intoxicated? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, what does this scene have to do?
The what's it? Shoot, I mean, even in Cinderella, you have the insane antics of the king kind of in there, and him getting pretty sloshed. Just a bunch of those movies, they love doing that. I think is it Dumbo that gets drunk? One of the
I think both Dumbo and Timothy the mouse gets lost.
Yeah. Oh sure, yeah.
And then they wake up in the tree or wherever they are.
I mean, can you imagine now if you were watching like, I don't know, Zootopia, there was like a random get drunk scene, like side characters we don't even know, like what?
I don't think you would fly.
No.
Yeah.
Very weird. I mean, it really would be kind of similar to if I mean, I guess you have in Beauty and the Beast, you have them drinking at the pub or whatever, but there's never like this weird intoxication scene.
Yeah.
It's really funny to me. And this scene, it's not my favorite. The scumps thing, and they're all first of all, I don't really like the fact that they're talking about their children like their property.
Yeah.
I don't really love that. But also it's just too long and I just don't really care about it. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, for me, it's a bit of. I hear what you're saying about the parents, but it's to me it reestablishes relationship between these two kings, and then the drunk dude is just the comic relief, which is so random. It is so random. He's funny. I mean, I laugh, but I'm with you. It's like I don't know why you're here, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah. It's
Go
it's
figure.
really interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's that, and then she is up in the room, and they leave her alone, which was very stupid.
Because again, like
just on that night, leave her alone other times, but be with her on the night of her 16th birthday. Yeah. What are you, crazy?
The fairies blow it. They make things right, but wow, they mess up.
But I absolutely love the whole sequence, the animation, when you see that sort of green light in the fireplace, and then her whole skin, she looks like an alien, but I love it.
Oh, I love it too.
So good.
She's instantly transfixed, and that really great music, the Tchaikovsky music that they make it work for it. It's so cool.
Yeah. And evidently I was reading that the music also went through a similar like rehashing and changing, how much of the Tchaikovsky they were going to use and changing music directors. And so it was equally messy as everything else. And,
wow.
but I just love how her skin turns like a zombie green.
It's
so good.
It's so great.
She's going up the fireplace, and then they of course find that she's missing and freak out and trying to find her, and she gets up to the top and she pricks her finger. It's such a great sequence. It's so strong.
It is. It's terrific.
Yes. So and then you have Maleficent coming on and saying, "You poor simple fools, think you could defeat me, the mistress of all evil."
Yeah, it's exactly.
And
I love how Maleficent then captures the prince.
Yes. So then the fairies put everybody to sleep, which is really, really good and smart of them.
Smart idea.
And then you see, you get this a great scene where you see Philip coming to the cottage. He thinks, he's just expecting her to be, there as a commoner. And he's talked with his dad earlier about falling in love with this commoner. And and you see just Maleficent's like in the back of the house, and he gets captured by her. I really I think that's a really good scene. And so so the fairies go up to the Forbidden Mountain. They're terrified to do so, but they do, and you have Philip tied up in the dungeon, and you have Maleficent talking to him, and it's basically poetry. I should have written it all down, but it's really good when she's saying like, "Off he rides on his noble steed."
Oh yeah,
and all that whole
just describing that. Yeah, he's she's gonna let him age in prison while she sleeps, and then by the time she lets him out, he's gonna be a very elderly man, and who's not going to have any appeal, supposedly, with the princess.
It's really, really good. And it'll prove that true love conquers all. Right. Really good. And
she's good. Eleanor Audley, isn't it? She just the best.
is amazing. She's incredible. And yeah, so then the fairies get to the Forbidden Mountain, and Merryweather turns Diablo into stone, which is a really great moment.
That's a great moment, because we're also sick of it. I guess you're just sick of his cackling, or whatever is that bird call that he's doing. That is so annoying.
And the whole sequence, just this whole sequence of them freeing Philip from the dungeon, him going, and her, Maleficent, seeing and making the thorns. And I love that whole, I didn't write it down, but the whole kind of spell that she puts on it, like brine and brewy, make the thorns, whatever it is. I can't remember, but it's really cool.
It is. So cool.
Yeah, and so then he's fighting off all these thorns, and then you also, Flora, part of the reason they go up to the Forbidden Mountain is they learn that she hears the king talking about how Philip had met a woman in the forest.
Yeah, so she figures out that he met Princess Aurora.
Right. And so it gets down to a fight between Maleficent as a dragon and Philip, and that's just all amazing.
Which is one of the all-time great, fight scenes in a Disney animated film. Yeah. It's so that good. When Maleficent turns into a dragon, holy smokes, is amazing.
It's so good. And like I said, I remember as a kid just being terrified.
Oh, it's so scary.
Yeah. And so then Flora makes the sword of Philip a sword of truth. And she gives this spell or whatever for that.
Evil die and good endure.
Yes.
Or something. And
yeah. And so he's able to impale, I guess, with the sword, the dragon. And she dies, and I love how there's that like impression of her on the ground with the sword through it.
Yep.
Really cool. Very cool.
It's and it's a great visual because it's final. It's like, she's gone. Yeah.
And so then they all get to the castle, and he kisses Aurora, and she wakes up. And some people in modern views are like, wow, she didn't consent to him being kissed. Oh my gosh, because they were already in love, and they'd expressed it. They made a commitment that they were going to.
Not like it's some stranger.
Right. It's so ridiculous.
It's so stupid.
And so, I don't know, ridiculous. And so she wakes up, and everything is restored, and we see the wedding, and it's all just very, or I don't know if that's necessarily the wedding, actually. It's just
it's like a restoration, though. The princess is back home, and she's with the prince who she was betrothed to, right?
Yeah.
And the Prince Philip's dad is like, okay, things are okay now. He realizes that everything's worked out.
Yeah.
So go figure.
So there you go. That's Sleeping Beauty. I think we basically covered it all. I think it's a really great little movie. It's not without its flaws, but I think the strengths definitely far outweigh the negatives, and I really do love it.
I love it too. And even though, as we're talking about, it wasn't a success back in the day, I think hopefully Walt can look down upon this with happiness, knowing how much people really love and respect this film. And it's one of those too, as watching it, just as I did on the big screen a couple weeks ago, I think it's one of those that's just going to hold up forever. It's just one of those films that, sure, there's some stuff in it as we've talked about, but it is a timeless classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I actually have it at number 9 in my most recent ranking.
Oh, cool.
Very
Okay.
high. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I love it too. I don't have a ranking, but it's up in the top.
yeah.
The top for me.
So all right. Well, good. So let's see what we get next month.
All right.
Very exciting. So it looks like the pick, we got 25, and that is our favorite, The Black Cauldron.
The Black Cauldron. All right.
So that will be the pick for April.
All right.
Yeah, and except for Little Mermaid, we'll cross the 80s off our list.
Yes.
That's so weird. Oh,
it is,
yeah.
and be grateful. I love The Little Mermaid. I can't wait to watch that one. But
I know. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun to talk about, and yeah, so something to look not forward to and forward to at the same time.
Exactly.
So, let me read before we go just some of the comments that I got.
Yes.
I got a lot on my Twitter about Sleeping Beauty. Georgia Speech says, I have extreme love for this film and everything about it. Aurora, Philip, Samson. Who was Samson?
The horse.
Oh, horse. Very good.
Yeah.
The music in all caps, the dancing, the fairies. So much love. Also, Team Pink, always. Animated Antic has Sleeping Beauty is such an elegant and gorgeous film that I simply adore. Yeah, its main characters aren't the best, but Maleficent and the fairies are both fantastic characters, and I even adore the animation and Ivan Earl's influence on the film. Also, I'm Team Blue. Jim Gizeril says, we watched this as a family recently. We thought blue was the best, but hot take here, the color changing dress is pretty cool in itself. So in a way, I don't take a side. Kyle Ovak says, visual masterpiece, the last gasp of ambition in Disney feature animation in the post-war pre-Renaissance days. Team Blue, but Pink's cool too. Richard Southworth says, one of my favorites from childhood, lovely visuals and music and great characters. I'm Team Blue. And and then we have Alex Klepp. He says, really charming and beautiful. Aurora is okay. Philip is a bit of a bore. Alex. Maleficent is great, and the fairies are awesome. I'm Team Blue because it's my favorite color. And then one more here. Brooks tweet says, such a beautiful film. I always think it's the fairy story rather than Aurora's. Also, Maleficent is, of course, an amazing villain. Oh, and always Team Blue. So there we go. Here's some of that.
That's great.
Let us know what you think of Sleeping Beauty in the comments section or on Twitter. Let us know. We'd love to talk about it. And thanks so much. This was so much fun.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. This was great. What a wonderful film.
Yeah.
To watch.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
All right. Well, I'm on Twitter at Stanford Clark, and I also have a movie blog and podcast at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And I'll have that all in the description section. People can check it out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media and on iTunes and YouTube. If you're listening on iTunes, please give us your ratings and reviews. It really helps us out, help more people to find the podcast. And then if you're listening on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps us out as well. So thanks so much. And we will talk next month about Black Cauldron.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye.